I think it's easy to get caught up in maybe whatever season you're in, if it's not the season necessarily that you want to be in, and to get lost in that. But if that thought of your purpose being to reflect his glory, to be formed into his image, if that is at the forefront of your mind, gosh, we can do that in any season, whether we're a college student or a stay-at-home parent or working 60 hours a week at a high-level corporate job. I mean, all of those are very different, but all have the opportunity to be formed into the image of Christ as we're doing that.
You can fulfill your purpose from anywhere.
Right.
Calling is one of those things that it's like, okay, what did God put me on the earth to do? What do we always say, kind of a funny way, what do you think about when you brush your teeth? That's probably your calling, right? Like what wakes you up out of bed? What pulls your heartstrings? And it's like, I may be passionate about something and care about something and see a need for something, but it doesn't tug on my heart like my calling does.
Hey there, welcome back to the Greater Marriage Podcast. It is another week hanging out with you, and as always, we are excited to be here, excited to talk about all things relationship, marriage. Hey, if you haven't already, jump over to your favorite social media platform. Give us a follow. It's just Greater Marriage. You can find us on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, even TikTok.
We for sure will judge you by your age on what you follow. We know that if you're jumping on TikTok and following us on TikTok, you're probably in your 20s, you know? 30-year-olds, people in our age range, probably jumping on the Instagram, giving us a follow on Instagram. Anyone older, maybe our parents' age, probably jumping on Facebook first, you know?
Sure.
And so we're judging you, depending on how, in what order you follow us. But you can follow us on all three.
I won't admit how long it took me to figure out how to use TikTok.
I don't have it. So she runs our TikTok, and we just lay in bed together, and I watch her TikTok and laugh and watch all the makeup tutorials and then all the people falling and the dog videos. That's pretty much, I mean, it's like marriage content, biblical content, makeup content, whatever, female content, and then dogs and people falling.
And there's always a random thrown in there.
Always a
random video. But good old social media. Love it, hate it,
Love-hate relationship with it.
Okay, so today we are excited to talk to you because we are talking about purpose and
calling.
Calling. Those, I think a lot of people use interchangeably.
Yep.
Purpose and calling, people can lump into one category and say that it's the same thing. Your purpose is your calling is your purpose. But we disagree. Do you want to kind of expound on that a little bit?
Yeah, I think that especially when we talk about the church, right? We talk a lot about purpose. We talk a lot about calling. Why did God put me on the earth? We're all trying to find that. And I think that purpose is easy because the purpose is always the same. Our purpose, humanity's purpose, is to glorify God. Plain and simple. And the way that we glorify God is to be formed into the image of His Son, right? That's how we bring God glory, is to be formed into the image of His Son. And so we all have the same purpose, essentially. And the way that we go about that and the way that we're disciplined and discipled is different, but we're headed toward the same goal, to glorify God with our lives, with every part of who we are, the way that we treat other people, the way that our daily routines, the way that we parent our children, the way that we interact in our marriage. All of it is to glorify God. And so that part is simple. The calling is what's different. I think that's what people kind of associate with their purpose on the earth. And I think that if you get the two confused, it can cause you to have a loss of self-worth, or you begin to doubt if you're called of God or what God is doing in you, because I think that when you interchange the two, there's just some meaning that gets lost there, because purpose is easy. It's like, man, I just want to glorify God in this thing. I don't have to, there's not really, I don't want to say there's not measurables, because there are, because we glorify God in many different ways, and there's a way to not bring Him glory, right? But also, it's not like there's an end goal in mind except to be formed into the image of His Son, which is a lifelong process. And so I think in purpose, you can give yourself that long-term vision that we always talk about, right? And to just say like, man, I'm going to spend the rest of my life fulfilling my purpose. And the purpose is just to glorify God in my daily life. Did I spend time in His Word today? Did I hear from Him? Did I take a moment to speak to Him? Did I cry out to Him in a time of need? Was I worshiping Him in the way that I interacted with my children today, or with my boss today, or with my coworkers today? If not, man, his mercies are new every day, and I get to try again tomorrow. And
Man,
so
that's such an encouraging thought, because I think it's easy to get caught up in maybe whatever season you're in, if it's not the season necessarily that you want to be in, and to get lost in that. But if that thought of your purpose being to reflect his glory, to be formed into his image, if that is at the forefront of your mind, gosh, we can do that in any season, whether we're a college student or a stay-at-home parent or working 60 hours a week at a high-level corporate job. I mean, all of those are very different, but all have the opportunity to be formed into the image of Christ as they're doing that.
You can fulfill your purpose from anywhere.
Right.
Calling is one of those things that it's like, okay, what did God put me on the earth to do? What do we always say, kind of a funny way, what do you think about when you brush your teeth? That's probably your calling, right? Like what wakes you up out of bed? What pulls your heartstrings, And it's like, I may be passionate about something and care about something and see a need for something, but it doesn't tug on my heart like my calling does. Like we genuinely feel called to help families and relationships and marriages and help human beings figure out their identity in Christ, use that revelation to then strengthen their marriage and allow them to communicate well, and then form out of it a strong family that honors God and raises up the next generation. That's what I think about all day, when I'm going to bed, when I'm waking up. That's what I think about. And so that is the calling on our lives.
Yeah, it's what sets your soul on fire.
Yes, exactly.
What do you walk away from? What type of conversation, what type of studying, whatever it is, do you walk away from feeling so energized and so fueled up and not even wanting to walk away? Like I think about the times that we get to talk with other couples or host our young marrieds group, and it's like, that session ends or that night ends, and it's like, oh man, I wasn't ready for it to end.
I could die all night.
You know, and I think if you can figure out what makes you feel that way, your purpose is probably, or your calling is probably attached to that.
Yeah, for sure. And so I want to talk about a story today in the Word of God that is one of my favorite stories. And it's a story of Moses, very simple story. And I think that most of us know this story or have heard it. But I want to call out a couple of things on when Moses began to see his calling or feel his calling, how he went about it the wrong way, what that caused, and then how he then stepped into the calling that God has for his life and did it the right way, and God, set people free because of it. And I think it's very cool if you can look back on his life and see that from the very beginning of time, he was fulfilling the call of God. He just didn't always do it the right way. But he had that call from a very young age, and he knew it. And so let's talk about that. So in the story of Moses, if you don't know, we'll catch you up real quick. So remember Jacob with the coat of many colors, and he goes to the prison, and then he goes to the pit, and then the prison, and then he's in the palace, and he sets his people, free, and he gives his dad land. Well, the Israelites begin to inhabit Egypt in that moment through Jacob. And it's a promise from God that it's going to happen. And so the Israelite people become very strong in Egypt. And the Pharaoh gets terrified of them and tries to wipe them out. Basically, he makes them all slaves. And then even as slaves, they flourish, because it's a promise of God that his people will flourish wherever they are, that wherever their foot treads, it'll be on land the Lord has given them. And wherever they put their hand to will prosper. And God's a God of his promise.
Aren't you so thankful for that?
Oh my gosh, yes, because we're the people of God. Yes. The church are the people of God now.
That promise is for us.
That promise is for us. And so his promise is fulfilled, and these people begin to flourish everywhere they are. And the women are having babies like crazy, and the men are outworking the Egyptian men. And it's just this amazing, fruitful life that the Israelites are living. They are. I mean, the word says it literally. The word says the Israelite women have. The word basically says, in layman's terms, they are built different, and they have babies too quickly.
Oh, that'll preach right there. They are built different. For those moms that had babies back to back to back, you are built different.
Built different. The Israelite women were built different, and it's funny because this part of it isn't funny, but the way the women respond is funny. So the Pharaoh says, we need to kill all of the boy babies. So let's leave the women, because they, in their society, they saw women as weaker. And so they're like, okay, let's just leave the women, kill all the men so that they can't continue to grow, that their population can't continue to grow. And the Egyptian women won't do it. The midwives won't do it. They won't kill the boys. And then they use that excuse to say, these Israelite women are built different, and they just have babies too quickly. We can't get there in time to kill the boys. So now all the boys are 2 and 3 years old. The Pharaoh finds out that they haven't been being killed. And so he says, hey, let's kill them all now, everyone 2 and under, which Again, type and shadow of what happened when Jesus was born, right? What Herod did. So Moses is very important. He's put in a basket and floated down the Nile River. We know this story. The Pharaoh's daughter finds him. A servant woman comes, Israelite woman, and says, I know a woman that just had a baby. She can nurse this child. Well, it's Moses' mom. And so Moses goes back into the home of his mother, gets to be nursed by his mother, weaned by his mother. So at 2 or 3 years old, when he's done nursing, he goes back and is raised as a prince. Very cool story.
Very cool.
Raised as a prince, has favor with the Pharaoh, amazing life that he gets to live. But we see at a young age, Moses goes out and he sees his people being enslaved and being treated poorly, and his heart breaks for them. In this moment, we see the calling on Moses' life begin to appear. He feels the need to rescue his people, not knowing what God is going to call him to do in 30 or 40 or 50 years, right? He feels this need even as a son of the king, even as a grandson of Pharaoh and a prince in the kingdom. He feels this deep desire to rescue his people. So he sees an Israelite fighting an Egyptian. He kills the Egyptian, buries him in the sand, goes back, and he feels like, I'm fulfilling my calling. I'm doing it. Like I have this desire to help these people, and now I'm fulfilling that desire. Well, he did it through his own power. He did it with his hands. And so he kills this Egyptian with his bare hands. Comes back, the next day, and he sees 2 Israelites fighting. And he says, hey, knock it off. Like, you two shouldn't be doing this. This isn't about you. And again, having that urge to free his people, to help his people. And he says, hey, stop fighting each other. Your fight isn't against each other. Your fight is against the kingdom that I'm a part of. But again, just feeling the weight of this calling, right? And they look at him and they say, oh, what are you going to do? You're going to kill us like you killed the Egyptian? And Moses freaks out. And he runs away for 40 years. I think there are times when we are trying to walk out the calling of God, when we do something wrong and we get called out for it, and it's like, all right, never mind. I guess that wasn't it. I guess that wasn't what I was supposed to do. I hit a bump in the road. I did something, I did something the wrong way. I tried to do it my way. I didn't trust God, whatever. And it's like, maybe that wasn't my calling. Maybe that wasn't what I was supposed to do. And we just begin to let go. And we bury the dream. And for 40 years, Moses buried the dream, and he goes out and he becomes a shepherd for his father-in-law Jethro. He's guarding the sheep. He's got a staff in his hand, and it's like, this is my identity now. Like, this staff is all I have. This is who I am. I'm a shepherd. Shepherds carry staffs, right? And he's like, this is all I've become. I thought I was going to set the people free. I thought I was going to help from inside the kingdom. I imagine that the way Moses saw it was, man, I'm placed here in the kingdom for a reason. I'm the grandson of the Pharaoh for a reason. I know that those are my people. And maybe from the inside out, I can change this and I can set them free. Well, it didn't happen for him. And so now he's discouraged. He sees a bush burning. I know I'm moving very quickly, but if you know the story, I just want to bring a little bit of insight here. He sees a bush burning. He goes, and God calls out from the bush and says, hey, I'm going to have you lead my people out of Egypt, and you're going to lead them out of slavery. And he begins to doubt God and say, how can I do this? And how will I tell them, who will I tell them sent me? And that's when God says, I am the great I am. And this amazing moment. And then he says, how will they know that you sent me? And he said, well, what's in your hand, Moses? And Moses is like, my staff. Like, I'm a shepherd. What do you think's in my hand? Like, this is all I am now. And God says, throw it on the ground. He throws it on the ground and it becomes a serpent. And he freaks out, runs from it, again, running from his calling. God says, pick it up. And it took some bravery there, some faith to reach out and pick it up, and it became a staff again. And God says, this is how they'll know. Isn't it cool that God used the thing that he used to identify him? I'm just a shepherd. I just oversee sheep. I just belong in the field. God says, no. What you're using to see as common, to identify yourself as common, I'm going to use to set you apart.
Wow.
That's how God uses the calling on our life. The thing that we see about ourselves as common, the thing that we see about ourselves as broken, the thing that we see about ourselves as holding us back, God can say, no. I'm going to use this thing to set you free and to set others free.
Yeah.
And so in the same, I'm going to again move very quickly through the story, but in the same way, Moses then goes and he takes that staff and he's confident again. He brings Aaron along with him to be his mouthpiece because he didn't speak well. God is kind of creating a way out for him. He goes and he begins to lead the people. The 7 plagues come. They finally get let out and they go and they get to the mouth of the river, right? The edge of the river. And they feel the Egyptians coming after them, right? And they have to split this sea now to get across. And like, how are we going to get across this sea? Like, there's no way this happens. They begin to complain to Moses. So all these people that Moses is called to, the people that he's supposed to be setting free, the people that he's trying to bring them from being slaves to being sons of God, to being kings and priests in the promised land, like all of this prophecy that they've been talking about for hundreds of years, he's trying to bring them to it. And they just begin to complain. Were there not enough graves for us in Egypt? Do you not just want to leave us to die? At least we had meals there. At least we could have died there, instead of just dying out here in the desert. I think the point of that is some people that God has called you to lead will not want to go where you're called to take them. Right? There's going to be times in our life as we pursue our calling where we see people that we're dying to help. We see people that our heart just breaks for. We have sat across the table for marriages that it felt like we wanted it to work more than they wanted it to work.
Yeah.
And it's like, my gosh, all I want is for you guys to have a great marriage. And you're just fighting me on it. All I want is for you to see the best in him. All I want is for you to see the best in her. And you're refusing to do that. And it's like, I can't do it for you. But we see that the people that we need to lead don't always want to go where we're called to lead them.
Yeah.
Right? And so don't be discouraged by that. Moses then goes to God and God says, Moses, what's in your hand? And again, God uses the staff to split the seas and to create freedom for all of the people. They pass through the water. There's walls of water on each side. They pass through on dry land. It takes them all night. He's leading 3 million people across this sea, the Red Sea. They get across. And the sea collapses on the Egyptians. And the enemies, just like Moses prophesied, the enemies that they saw that day were gone forever. They were washed away. The people are free. They're on the other side. Here's what I think is so cool about this moment. Number one, I think we see that Moses found his purpose in the midst of a problem. I think a lot of times we go through things in life and it's like, well, I was abused as a kid. Or, well, I had a really bad home life. Or, well, I come from a line of broken marriages. And we see these problems that we feel like are going to latch onto us, that we feel like we have to carry. And it's like, no. Maybe the Lord is going to deliver you from that and deliver others from that. Maybe your purpose is going to be found in a problem. I don't believe that God leads you into a problem to create purpose for your life. I believe that God can create purpose out of anything. And so that purpose of us being formed in the image of God, maybe we allow the hardship to form us into the image of God instead of creating a hard heart toward God that it happened. It's like, no, you know what? God didn't create this, but he can definitely make the best out of it, right? And so it's like we're going to allow that to position us to find freedom so that we can lead others. And here's the point of it all, the crux of it all. And I'm just owning this.
You're doing amazing.
I'm taking over today. Very passionate. I just taught this story, and so it's just on my mind. I enjoy teaching this one of my favorite stories. So the whole point is this. Moses gets to the other side of the water. The water collapses. The Israelites are free. They're free to be sons. Again, they start complaining. They roam the wilderness for 40 years. Nobody saw that coming yet, right? Except for God. Moses' name, right? The Word of God tells us what his name meant. So you think about that. From the time he was born, he's called the Pharaoh's daughter named him, okay? And it says this in Exodus 2:10. The princess named him Moses, for she explained, I lifted him out of the water. What God did for Moses, delivering him from the water, Moses did for the entire Israelite people, delivering them through the water. God lifted Moses out of the water. Moses lifted the Israelite people out of the water and made them sons. God made Moses a son in Pharaoh's kingdom. Moses made the Israelites sons in God's kingdom. What God did what happened in the physical transformed the spiritual. And in your life, what happens in the physical ahead of you will be birthed in the spiritual first.
Yes.
It's got to happen in you before it happens through you. Moses became the man to lead the people before he ever led the people. He followed Jethro. He was able to submit to the leadership of other men. He submitted to the leadership of Pharaoh. He submitted to the leadership of Jethro. And because he submitted to the leadership of God, he was formed into the man and brought the people into the wilderness. Now, he did not lead them well once they got there, not always, right? He still took some more coaching from Jethro on how to break them up into groups. And there were things that he did wrong, which is why he didn't get to enter the promised land. But what he did right is to lead them to freedom, like God called him to. And the point was, what God did in him wasn't just for him. Maybe what God is doing in you isn't just for you. Do you want to speak to that now that I've talked for 25 minutes? Do you want to speak to why we do what we do and how what God has brought us through can allow us to fulfill our calling in the world, and how we can maybe find some sense of calling in that?
Sure. I think sometimes when you're in the midst of that problem, that struggle, that wilderness season, whatever it is, it's hard to see the other side. You know, like we stand on that promise, like Romans 8:28, he works all things together for the good of those who love him and are called according to his purpose. But how difficult it is to see the other side when you feel like you're drowning or when you feel like you're stuck in the wilderness. But I mean, I think in our lives, it's so simple to look back now and see how the Lord has used this to develop a calling on our life. You know, I mean, for me to step into widowhood at 21 years old, and then for us in our first year of marriage to go through some really difficult things, like both of those moments, if you would have told me in either of those times, like, oh, actually, like your calling is to help marriages, I'd be like, I'm sorry, what? This marriage just ended because my husband died. This marriage feels like it's going up in flames right now. How in the world could that happen? But now here we are, fast forward all these years later, and nothing fires me up more than that. Why? Because the Lord did what he always does, and he worked it together for our good. And this pain and these problems that we navigated and went through, we allowed to become fuel for us to further the kingdom. And, you know, I think that if you can look back at your life and think about those hard moments, maybe you're in one of those right now, just ask the Lord what he wants to do through it, what he wants to use it for. Dream about what he could do with it, because his ways are higher than our ways. His thoughts are higher than our thoughts. And like Moses, it may not play out the way that we think it will. You know, we may have an idea in our mind of how the Lord could use it, but he has something different. And I can promise you what he has is going to be so much better than what we could dream up on our own.
Yeah, trial leads to triumph in the stories of God.
Yes.
We see it over and over and over. There's no story in the Word where people found their calling and what God had called them to do in an easy moment.
No.
Moses found it in hardship. Abraham found it leading his son up a mountain to go sacrifice him. You know, Samson found it with his eyes gouged out, standing before the people being made fun of. I mean, it's like Esther found it walking into the courts of the king, knowing that she could have her head lopped off. Like, it's like all of these people had to step into something hard, and there was a trial before the triumph came. Yes. But the Lord was victorious every time, and he will be victorious in your life too. And so whatever you've been through, whatever you're going through, count it all joy, right? Go to God and say, God, you know, we always say, seek to understand your season more than your function. Don't ask God, what can I do right now? What should I be doing? What do you want to do with my hands, right? Moses tried it with his hands. It didn't work. And when God said, hey, use what I've given you, right? I've given you everything according to life and godliness. And so God has given you everything that you need to fulfill the call of God in your life. And so use it, put it to work, and allow God to do a work in you and through you. Don't seek so much to understand what you're supposed to be doing right now as to understand what season you're in and what God is doing in you. Farmers understand seasons, right? They understand what to do if they understand what season it is. If I wake a farmer, right? If a farmer goes into a 6-month coma and I wake him up and say, hey, it's springtime, he's going to know what to do. It's like, oh, it's springtime. That means we got to go harvest, right? Hey, it's fall. Oh, shoot, I need to be planting some seed. Like, why? Because I know what season I'm in. So I know exactly what my function is. If you can understand what God is doing in you and what your season is, you will understand your function, and it will help you to walk out the calling that God has on your life.
Yeah. That's powerful. I think we can apply, you know, the principles that we learned in the story to ourselves personally. We can apply to our marriages, to other relationships in our life. I think it translates into so many areas. But in regards to marriage, obviously, like that is our heart's cry. How, in reference to this story, can we make our marriage greater today?
I think that we need to realize that, number one, give yourself some grace, right? We've all been through hard trials. We've all been through hard times. And I think that it's easy to lose your sense of purpose or calling in a marriage because you get so busy. And we do what Moses did, where we continue to live our lives, but we live it outside of the purpose and call of God. Moses left, and those 40 years are unaccounted for. We know that he got married. We know that he had a father-in-law. I mean, that's really all we know, because he didn't accomplish anything in those years. And I think that we can tend to feel like that. It's like, oh, I'm in my 40 years of running right now because I'm just trying to make sure the kids are fed and the house is good and the bills are paid and, I'll take care of all the things. I think that what we can do is, man, focus and don't run from the calling and the purpose, and don't run from, open your eyes to realize that the purpose of God can happen in your life every single day. It can be the way you wake up. It can be the way you speak to your kids. It can be the way you bless your kids before they leave the house. It can be the way that you prepare meals and sit around the table. It can be in everything that you do. You can add the purpose and the story of the gospel into everything that you do. We talk about this with the book Habits of the Household. Phenomenal book. Talking about just the liturgy of your life. How are you worshiping God with your everyday tasks? I think that if we do that, we are living out the purpose in our lives, to be formed to the image of Christ and to form our children into the image of Christ. And so that's an easy way for us to find a little bit of hope in the day-to-day. And then outside of that, man, cry out to God and say, God, what did you put us on the earth to do? What have we been through that we can help others through? And what are we going through right now that we need to be led through so that we can find hope and freedom on the other side? And then what does that look like in the future? And how can we lead others through what we're going through right now? Man, take great notes. Take great notes on what God is doing in your life and what he's doing in this moment, even in a hard moment, because there's going to be a day where you look back and say, man, look what we got through. Look what the Lord brought us through. And you can find hope in that. And that will allow you to find some hope in the midst of whatever trial you're going through right now.
Yeah, that's what we're praying over you today, that you will find and cling to that hope if you're currently in a trial, or that you'll be able to look back at the trials that you've been through and find what the Lord wants to show you through it. Find how you can use it to further his kingdom.
Absolutely.
And to impact other people.
Yeah.
Hey, thanks so much for joining in with us today. As always, you can hop over to greatermarriage.com. You can find resources there. You can learn a little bit more about us, our background, why we're here. You can connect with us. Like we said at the beginning of the episode, social media is a great place to connect as well. So thank you so much for tuning in, and we'll see you next week. Go be great.